Ghana yesterday joined the international community to mark the Bipolar Day. So what are the causes of bipolar? How is it managed? Our Upper West regional correspondent Swala Abdul-wahab is standing by to delve into the issue. Good afternoon, Swala.
Good afternoon, Dorothy.
Over
Thanks
to you
for having
then.
me.
Right, tell us what bipolar is all about.
Yeah, so Dorothy, you agree with me that I'm not a medical expert,
Right.
but what we understand is that bipolar disorder is a mental health condition which makes people with this disorder to behave in a particular way. But what happens most of the time is that those who are not suffering from this disorder are not able to detect so easily about the abnormal behavior of people who suffer from bipolar disorder. And as a result, they are not able to detect it early enough to be able to send such people to the hospital for medical attention. We are at the Municipal Health Directorate to speak to the Municipal Mental Health Coordinator to take us through what bipolar disorder is, what are the causes, what should people suffering from bipolar disorder do, and what is the way forward in handling bipolar disorder. Mr. Victor Dejo, welcome to GBC Real Time Live on GBC News.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the Municipal Mental Health Coordinator. When we talk of bipolar disorder, what exactly are we referring to?
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. With bipolar disorder, more often than not, as human as we are, we do wake up in the morning. Sometimes we are happy, and then we just want to be alone. Other times, when we wake up in the morning, at the extremity of these, mood swing can result to bipolar. So, in a nutshell, bipolar in itself is a mental disorder that causes periods of depression and elevated mood. The elevated mood had to do with what we call hypomania or mania, depending on the severity of the condition. So that is actually what bipolar is.
Yeah, so we understand people suffering from bipolar disorder, sometimes they can be too happy or too excited, and other times they look too sad. Can you explain a bit further about this condition?
All right, thank you. Yes, of course. Persons with bipolar do, experience what they call euphoria. That is the extreme excitement or happiness. And then, of course, they do experience this extreme sadness. That is the depression mood or the depressive mood. But then, when it's two conditions in one, the mania or hypomania and also the depression. Now, the extreme excitement or the happiness with the mania when they are in the manic episode. That is when, besides the extreme happiness, they do have this abnormal energy. They are so energetic in the sense that, in fact, they can lift anything beyond their own limits. And so that they do experience such. And then again, they do also have this feeling of grandeur. They feel that they are invisible and they are all powerful. And so they also believe that with that, they believe that God has actually placed them on a mission and that they have a special assignment for the whole world. So that is that feeling of grandeur. Then to add to this, they also have what they call the same on the manic episode, that is in that elevated mood. They also have decreased need for sleep and food. Well, because
they don't eat enough,
yes,
and they don't sleep
they don't
enough.
actually have time for food. They pace, they move about. So, in fact, in a layman term, I say they are busybody. They are the busybody people. That is when they get to the manic episode or the mania level. they are so busy at going out, they move up and down, pacing. And so they don't have time for food. And with that, if we, the experts, even those my colleagues at the hospitals, you can't give someone with bipolar, when they get to the manic episode, let's say rice. We will not have time to sit and eat rice. We give them handy food, like bread. While going, then we just eating the bread. So with that, that is how we manage them, even at the psychiatrists.
Let's look at the other side. When they are sad,
all right,
how do they behave?
Okay, thank you. One thing about when they are in the depressed mood, they do have their depressed mood, and with that, they have this what we call crying spells, some tearfulness. And then we see some tearfulness. When you ask them what is the matter, they will tell you, they'll even nod their head, possibly they will not mind you. Then again, they have suicidal thoughts. And they have that feeling that they are good for nothing. It's best for them to die rather than to live. And so they find means and medium to get other things that will help them achieve their goal by eliminating themselves. So that is where that is at the depressed mood. Then they also do have these psychotic symptoms. That is when they get to the severe stage. They have what we call delusions or hallucinations. When I talk about delusion, I'm referring to they have some belief which is actually fixed, and it is not actually logical. And with that, let's say I serve someone with bipolar food, or you serve somebody with bipolar food, the person may have the thought that you have poisoned the food, so wouldn't eat. So the person believes that this food is full of poison, so it's better we will not eat.
And stay hungry.
Yeah. So that is when they have the psychotic symptom, the delusion. With the hallucination, they do experience either auditory or visual. The auditory, they keep hearing some strange commanding voices. Some strange commanding voices telling them to do things against their will. And so they go to the extent or the extra mile getting their clothing. The voice can command them to get their clothing. Go and burn them. That is when they get to, the auditory, that is the hallucination level. Then with the visual hallucination, they see strange things that in reality, you and I, we are not seeing them.
So what is the cause of all this?
All right, genetic has a role to play in terms of the, factors or the causes. Genetic has a role. The genetic, we are saying that with a genetic factor, first degree relative, the parent that began the family where you come from, any of them that have suffered bipolar condition or bipolar disorder, the probability, not the possibility actually, the probability of such a generation suffering from, any of that generation suffering from this condition is there. The probability is there, but the percentage is not vast actually. It's not much, about 10% of that family. And also with that, or in line with that, other factors play a role.
Such as other factors, such as?
Like long-term stress. We as, workers, we are employed to do, before you get to your work, you have already worked from the house, where after work, probably the time could be 8 hours, as government workers, 8 hours to be precise. Then you get to work, there's no time for you to rest. And you have other things doing. And there are other people who do not, even after the government, where they have other work doing somewhere. So keeping yourself or piling yourself with these so many work, you put stress on yourself. With that, it affects your mental state and even your well-being as well. So long-term stress also play a role. Then again, we can talk about childhood abuse. Let's say a child breaks a plate, and for you to know that this child that does not know why this plate must be broken, and here as a father or as a mother, you hit the child. When this plate, do you know how much I bought it? You beat the child come to you with a complaint. You not listen, you shout on the child. This child become timid in a way. So anytime he has an issue, wouldn't come to you, keep to him or herself. So with that, we always say that there are two sides of the coin. When such a child goes to the school, it's either will act out on his colleagues or who will feel withdrawn, will always isolate himself from his colleagues. So childhood abuse also play a role in later in life when the child growing up and always keeping things to himself. Can also acquire this condition called bipolar.
But some of us are victims of what you are saying. But let's look at it. When one finds himself or herself in this situation, bipolar disorder, what should the person do?
Well, we say that early detection, early treatment. So persons with bipolar, well, actually, they do not have insight into their condition.
They don't know it themselves.
They don't actually know what is happening to them. So if we tell them you want to seek, a mental health expert or professional to attend to you, they will say they wouldn't go. They are actually not mentally ill. But the major role has to do on the relative, where they have to find a way of bringing such a client or such a person to the nearest health facility. It is good enough for us to have all mental health experts in the various sub-districts, looking at the hospital setting. Yes, at the sub-district health centers, there are mental health officers there where they can assess, these people. So with that, they don't actually have insight into their condition. Then we also want to encourage that parents or relatives should play a role. Also the neighbors, people around that particular community, they don't have to stigmatize such a person, because it could be anybody. Per the factors we have listed, there are more of them. Accidents is one of the factors we didn't mention. It can be nobody is.
It can shock too also result in
shock.
Yes.
Well, with shock in itself, disappointment. Yeah, disappointment is one of the environmental factors, where such a person had a broken news, and maybe suddenly the person least expected that news to happen, and so there's also a factor. It's one of the factors to consider talking about bipolar.
Yeah, so like for example, if someone loses the wife or the husband, can that result in a bipolar disorder?
Yes, of course. Yes, someone losing his or her loved one. Yes, the factor. The probability of such a person getting bipolar is there. The reason being that even as human as we are, we have neurotransmitters, which are responsible for our mood cycle. When you are happy, if somebody gives you a car of your interest, it's normal for you to be happy. And when you lose a loved one, like we just said earlier, you'll be sad in a way. But then these neurotransmitters, the dopamine, the norepinephrine, the serotonin, when they are in the imbalance, you have lost someone whom you love, and you'll be thinking about it. So, in other words, there's an imbalance of the neurotransmitters, which can affect the whole system.
Okay, so you've been listening to Mr. Victor Dajo. He is the WA Municipal Mental Health Coordinator in the Upper West region. He's educated us on what bipolar disorder is, the symptoms, and what we should do as our relatives, so that if you see anyone exhibiting some of these symptoms, kindly reach out to that person or the person's relatives to enable him or her be taken to a health facility for examination and medication.
Right. Swala, if you can hear me.
BBC Real News, Swala Abdul-wahab. Yes. Yeah, okay. I can hear you. Yeah.
Finally,
you have a question?
Yes. Kindly ask Mr. Dejo that we want to find out, is bipolar curable or it can only be managed with time? Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mr. Victor,
yes.
The anchor wants to find out, is bipolar curable or you can only manage it?
Actually, the process is from the management. It is curable in a nutshell, but you need to manage it. Then, in a nutshell, it's being cured. We have management like the psychopharmacology, that is the mood stabilizing agent. At the point we have what we call those who do not respond to the treatment, like the oral we give them, that is the drugs. We have what we call ECT, that is electroconvulsive therapy. In layman term, we say shock therapy. This is where an electric current is passed in the brain of the person, and it gives a brief surge electrical activity within the brain. So the person do recover from this condition over time.
Okay. So, Dorothy, the good news is that the mental health coordinator is saying it can be treated and at the same time it can be managed.
Sure.
So let's all play our part to ensure that people like us and others do not fall into the category or we don't develop bipolar disorder. Back to you, Dorothy.
Thank you so much, Swala Abdul-wahab. We are grateful for that report. And that was our correspondent from the Upper West region, Swala Abdul-wahab. And we are told bipolar is a mental health condition that comes with a symptom such as mood swings, either the mania, hypomania, or depression, also decreased need for sleep or food, suicidal thoughts, among others. We are also told that causes may include genetic, long-term stress, or childhood abuse. And also early detection is key, and it's curable with time, but must be managed with electroconvulsive therapy.